in a new place this trip. Last day of May today. In the Fish Creek Range near Eureka, Nevada, where I will walk first and then traverse back along the mountains south here to their terminus. Very deserty juniper savanna here to start off with. There's grass once in a while. Lots of low shrubs, including species of sagebrush. It's mostly bare ground. The highest percentage of ground has nothing growing upon it. We're in sagebrush desert at the moment, as opposed to sagebrush steppe, which we may even see on this trip. It's a lot wetter out here, even though it doesn't look like it, than some places near the Mojave, on the border of the Mojave I've been recently. And although there's a drought up here too, at least there's surface water and a lot of the drainages and gullies. Again, I saw that on the drive, not seeing that at the moment, of course. Castanea speckled in with the sagebrush, but unlike the steppe, it's not very grassy here and not very wet here. Sagebrush desert, interspersed with juniper savanna, of course. Unlike in the Mojave, got cheap grass sprouting up in the north in the Great Basin. It's already nodding off into fruit this very late May, but I still get a sense of fairly early spring out here. It's occasional cryptanthus coming up for spring annuals in this part. Our cespitous eriogonums, quite beautiful. And it's mostly perennial and shrubby, these parts. It's an atriplex mixed in with the sage brush. Some antelope bouncing out there. Making good progress. A relatively flat sagebrush desert crossing. Juniper zone is right there, so there's shade available. Not that it's needed that much today. Beautiful, gorgeous day in the 70s with a nice breeze. Be very cool tonight, I imagine. The savanna clearly peters out to there. I think that's the White Pine Range way out there. 11,000 feet. Lots of snow still on some of the highest mountains. And there's the Fish Creek Range ahead. There's the lower part that'll be coming back along. It'll be a lot hotter then, probably in the 80s. Which we would expect in the PJ zone in the summertime, commonly in the 80s, if not 90s. A record heat wave is supposed to be coming through, so we'll see how I fare. The high point is nearly 10,000 feet at Prospect Peak. There's a ton of Krasheninikovia, which we've seen together. Ooh, there's a hidden snake right there as well. Wow. Just noticed that. Okay. Anyway, Krasheninikovia right here. We we've seen together in Montaigne, Mojave, 4,000 feet. Oh, sorry, that snake has me a little bit unnerved. It's so well hidden right there. There's the rattle. Thankfully, of course, it wants nothing to do with me. Whew, shit. Anyway, the same species that occurs in the lower montane elevations of the Mojave is thriving here in the Great Basin, and of course I knew it to be more widespread, but just surprised to see it so common here. Basically co-dominant with the artemisias. Alright, I'm gonna shut up and keep my eyes better open, because I could have easily missed that one and stepped upon it. Don't usually think about snakes as much in the north, but you do have to think of them in the valleys here. Clearly. Thankfully, it's not too warm out, and it wasn't all that active. Lots of holes in the ground, making me think about snakes, but also lots of evidence of horses in the shade of these lone junipers in particular. They create a number of horse tracks as well. I'm sure they're attracted to the waters of that ranch land out there. So Fish Creek flows through there. It's called the Fish Creek Ranch. And Fish Creek itself just springs out of the ground around there. Snakes are not that common, actually, so poisonous ones. Seems like there's only poisonous ones in Nevada. It's not the case, but it's what you usually see. So when they're most on your mind, you're not really likely to see another one. When they're most on your mind right after a fresh encounter, chances are you're not going to see them, even though you're looking more closely for them. So it's a little bit fatiguing. Guessing horses make long journeys across valleys between ranges, and that this likely represents, first resting point after a long hot crossing, if it's summertime. Maybe a little bit of a windbreak, maybe some of the bigger ones better for that, in the cold of winter. At every single one of these lone junipers that form the vanguard against the completeness of the desert, they are all favorite haunts of horses. It's grazed to shit out here by both horses and cows. Consequently, there's a lot of nasty cheatgrass fields. Look at that, swaying in the wind forever. We got, other things speckled in here. Spheralcia is doing quite well in these highly disturbed parts. Crusheninacobia clearly doesn't mind disturbance all that much, but the cheatgrass is a little bit overwhelming at the moment. That last tree was the last one for quite a while. Probably the last one until I pitch camp, because I'm not gonna sleep exposed in this wind. Need to find at least one decent tree. No big washes out here like in the Mojave. No big shrubs out here for shade, kind of like in the Mojave. Big yuccas and larias and senegalias and such. But every plant here is well under a meter in height. Ended up camping on the plain actually. Worked out just fine. Virtually no wind all night. Gets a little hot there immediately as the sun comes up and starts turning into a little bit of a heat box. Shade and canyons ahead. And I pick what appears to be the prettiest one to head up. Which is a little subjective, obviously. See some sagebrush steppe up there on the high ridges. That'll be exciting. That's where those snow patches are. Some towers up there too. Still ascending Rato Canyon. It's becoming a lot more lush and lively, spring-like for once. Maybe the lushest area I've seen all year so far. Tons of phlox and lupin and commandra. What do they call that? Bastard flax or bastard toad flax, something like that. Commandra umbellata and the Santalacea, not a flax in any case. And oh my god, here we got a Fritillaria. These flowers blend in with the landscape rather well. You look at them, it's clear they're trying to attract flies, though. It looks like rotting meat. So all of a sudden, really, this is happening. Just 500 feet lower, not so much. And we're getting closer to the steppe, so this is why. Getting a mix between the PJ zone and the sagebrush steppe. Clark Spring is supposed to be here, and while there's plenty of riparian vegetation, no standing water. It's merely a rose thicket now. It's an old foundation here. So there used to be water. That looks like the hearth. Bottom is quite lush throughout nonetheless. There is another spring at the top called Rato Spring. Iris is coming back up. They don't like dry soils now, do they? Lots of roses. Even just saw some dandelion. Looks like there's some willows ahead. It's promising, but again, quite a dry year. Nothing in these deep pockets either. Got a big tire full of water. After the tire in wetlands dries up again, I'm expecting a reappearance because there's a Rato Spring ahead. See, there was at least a little bit of water this season, because there's the trickle path drying out right there. While it is dry, it's not so dry that it's not good to see the balsamroots coming out this year. Last year on the snake range, these were all toast. Here on the sagebrush steppe again, almost. Still plenty of PJ around. There's the sage. Got the balsamroots coming back. We will take closer looks when we find super blooms and such. They form quite magnificently beautiful expanses. Just disturbed a duck. The lone duck in Ratto Spring. Natural spring, a healthy spring. Not very mucked up from livestock, but rather mucked up from algae. Just kind of seeping out of the hillside here, huh? Taraxacum, woohoo. It's good to add to your meals at night, though. I collected a little bit. Don't want that taraxacum on the lawns and stuff with all the weed killer and stuff. Nice. There it is. There's the seep. Protected by quite a rose thicket. So nice to see a healthy forest understory. First time in well over a year in Nevada, at least. Last year being a dud in the Great Basin. This year being a dud in the Mojave. It's lush and rich, both. And the Cercocarpus understory. Indeed in the openings. Descending from lots of mining ruins. Passing by additional ruins. Meeting up with a new canyon. Enothera cespitosa starting to open up for the evening. The stigmas popping out first. Really caught my eye because I've never noticed this in particular before. Stigmas out first, and then the rest of the flower opens for the whole night, I suppose. Many of these are doing it. Maybe I'm just catching them at the right time. They always do that. You can see all the flowers of previous evenings as well. Still staying attached there, even though looking like dead, because those very large ovaries need to mature quite a bit. Here we go. That's what I'm talking about. Predominant features across basically all of Nevada are decrepit ranching infrastructures, likely associated with springs that dried up largely as a result of such exploitation, so that all remaining springs are pretty small. It's just a conjecture, though. There's no way to know, really, as far as my current knowledge and abilities go. If a lot of these springs were a lot more vigorous in the past. Meaning, since European settlers came obviously 10,000 years ago, everything about Nevada was a lot more vigorous, water-wise. What I'm wondering is it as bad as it's ever been right now? 'Cause seems to be getting worse. After all, why would the original map makers mark water where there was none? Or were they mapping in very wet years? All I know is many, many, many hundreds of springs across the state that are marked on maps are now dry or presumed dry. There's a lot of botany going on. On a better note, Cercocarpus ledifolius starting to shed its flowers. Obviously, balsamroot is doing vigorously. Speaking of vigor, and the amelanchiers are putting on quite a show all of a sudden. Jeez, I've been seeing amelanchiers in the Mojave this year. They've been looking like ratty crappy. Yeah, cryptanthus are super blooming now. This is great news. Means the steppes are wet this year. Means I'll be up north a lot this year. Even though it's far and expensive, you gotta do what you gotta do. Here's the Diamond Range in all of its steppe glory. Look how beautiful this freaking place is. It's a rough sidetrack. It's just carpeted in beauty and lined in magnificence. The PJ band was blessedly thin this far north, about 2,000 feet in breadth, as opposed to a lot more, say, Mount Irish Range. So we went from PJ to steppe with Cercocarpus dominant shrub. I'm on the outskirts of Ruby Hill, an abandoned mining settlement. That's only just one part of it. Looks completely abandoned from here right now. Descending in earnest now towards Ruby Hill, the abandoned mining town, and Eureka, the thriving county seat. Lots of old scarring and crop circles visible. There's Ruby Hill. And there's Eureka.